Tonight from New York, Dr. Ben Carson appears to backpedal on comments he made concerning Muslims on the same day Scott Walker walks away from the race for the White House. Was this due to Donald Trump? Well, Ed Klein weighs in on how Donald Trump is causing chaos on the campaign trail. Then, the Pope arrives in the U.S. today. Our panel will discuss the Pontiff's historic trip, as well as the message he plans to deliver. And a startling report from the NFL on the relationship between brain injuries and suicide in former players. Newsmax Prime starts right now. Good evening. Welcome to this special edition of Newsmax Prime. I'm J.D. Hayworth, coming to you tonight from Newsmax, New York. Of prime interest tonight, walking away, but not quietly. As Governor Scott Walker drops out of the GOP field, he takes a shot at current frontrunner Donald Trump. Here's part of what Governor Scott had to say during his news conference last night.
Today, I believe that I'm being called to lead by helping to clear the field in this race so that a positive, conservative message can rise to the top of the field. With this in mind, I will suspend my campaign immediately. I encourage other Republican presidential candidates to consider doing the same so that the voters can focus on a limited number of candidates who can offer a positive, conservative alternative to the current frontrunner.
And for more on this story, we're pleased to welcome to the anchor desk in New York, Edward Klein. Ed is the author of Blood Feud, The Clintons versus the Obamas. Ed, it's great to have you here tonight, face-to-face in New York on Newsmax Prime.
Good to be here in New York with you.
Tell me, what are you hearing about Walker and his decision to leave the campaign?
I think Walker dropped out for three reasons: money, money, and money. He made a number of terrible gaffes during his campaign. He said he wanted to build a fence with Canada, which people laughed at. He said that his experience with the unions in Wisconsin would translate to his dealing with ISIS, which was ridiculous. And he also said that he made a lot of different points of view about immigration, and he clearly waffled on those issues. And as a result, he made it very clear that he was really not ready for prime time.
We sat down to interview him a couple of months ago. I sat down much the same way I'm sitting down with you right now. He said he had learned more about the border, but you say the electorate viewed that as waffling.
I think so. You know, I was in touch many, many months ago with his campaign people in Wisconsin. I spoke to a guy named Mike Grebe, who was his campaign chairman. And I came away with the definite feeling that these guys were brilliant in Wisconsin, but knew virtually nothing about national politics.
I got to tell you this, I went to keynote the Wisconsin Republican Convention years ago, and I made a vow there and then if I ever ran for national office, my advance team would come from Wisconsin. They were remarkably adept, and I don't mean to stereotype people, but as good as they were on some of the details of campaigning, bottom line is Walker's message did not motivate because in the final analysis he did not have the money.
He didn't have the money, and he didn't have the money because he didn't convince his donors that he was really a national campaign guy.
On the subject of money, billionaire Donald Trump.
Yes.
We just heard Walker basically take a shot at the Donald leaving the race. Is the Trump effect bringing all of this to a boil somewhat early in the campaign season?
I think it has, for sure. I think the Donald has, in a sense, made it clear that this is a campaign about outsiders, not insiders, and we have Governor Perry, who's an enormously successful governor of Texas, flaming out, having to withdraw. Now Scott Walker. Governor Christie isn't doing very well. It's clear that the electorate is more interested in the outsiders, like Trump, like Fiorina, like
Dr. Ben Carson.
Dr. Ben Carson, exactly.
And now we can segue to Dr. Ben. You know, Dr. Ben's so soft-spoken, but he has made some incredible statements on the campaign trail. For example, just the other day on Meet the Press, talking about how he could not support a Muslim for president. Now, is part of this not bombast, but making these very definitive statements. How much of this is part of the Trump presentation that has captured people's minds?
You know, I think in the case of Dr. Carson, whether you agree with him or not, and by the way, I don't agree with him for a lot of reasons, which I could get into, but I think it came from his heart, from his actual, his Christian faith. I think he really truly believes that Sharia law, which is Islamic law, is not compatible with the American Constitution.
And even though the Constitution says there shall be no religious test for holding office, the doctor tried to explain that last night. Constitution can say one thing, but personally, when it comes to voting, that's something else. Now let's move to the process of voting. We've got about 3 minutes left. Got to go to the other side of the aisle, and that is where you have gone to work with a groundbreaking report about the Obamas, Joe Biden, and the vice presidential nominee of the Democratic Party. What is your reporting showing us now?
My reporting is that for months, not for days, not for weeks, but for months, the Obama team inside the White House has been courting an alternative to Hillary Clinton. They courted Elizabeth Warren. That didn't work. They thought seriously about Martin O'Malley, and they liked him because they thought he was, as Valerie Jarrett put it, O'Malleyable, that they could control him.
Yeah.
Neither of those things worked. Now they've turned to Joe Biden, and politics being politics, they've been very close to Joe. Valerie Jarrett has been helping him get over his grieving process with his son, Beau, who recently died of brain cancer. She's actually helped him with that. They've been encouraging him to get in, and they're saying to him, hey, Joe, we're really ready to endorse you, but you know, we want something back. And what they want back is a final say over his vice presidential nominee.
So they're going to pick Mr. Obama, and his wife are going to tell Joe Biden who the vice president nominee is going to be.
Now, that's hard to believe. But on the other hand, the Obamas have for not a couple of years, but since they got into the White House, have been thinking about their reign as not 8 years, but decades long. They want to have a serious and profound impact on the Democratic Party going forward for years and years to come. So they want to make sure that Biden picks the guy or woman who will carry on the legacy once Biden leaves the scene.
Now, this sets up a situation. Remember how the left would lampoon Bush 43, saying he took orders from Dick Cheney. Now, imagine the dynamic, although I'm sure the dominant media culture would try to avoid it. If the Obamas are going to dictate to Mr. Biden who his running mate is going to be, what are they going to leave Valerie Jarrett in the White House? Or is there going to be a hotline between wherever Mr. Obama takes up residence and the Oval Office to tell Joe how to run the country?
I think what the Obamas are seriously thinking about is that Joe should run for one term, 4 years, and then turn over the presidency to his vice president. And the Obama inside group is thinking of Deval Patrick, who is the first and only African American to be governor of Massachusetts, very close to Obama, both personally and ideologically. And they see another African American coming along after Joe, carrying on the Obama legacy.
So we might say Deval is in the details, or a report to follow. Is there anybody else they're looking at, or they just have their sights set on Governor Patrick?
Well, I think he is certainly their number one choice. And I think he's number one because, as you recall, Obama actually gave a speech once in which he plagiarized some of Deval's own words. So there's a very close affinity between Obama and Deval, and I think they're very hot on him.
Ed Klein, author of Blood Feud, The Clintons versus the Obamas. And this note, you can read more of Ed's blog at edwardklein.com. Now, Carly Fiorina is surging in the polls, but does she have what it takes to be America's next commander-in-chief? Newsmax answers with a special free offer for Carly Fiorina's book, Rising to the Challenge. This is a must-read for all conservatives, and it's free as part of the special offer. Just go to newsmax.com/Carly and get your free copy of Carly Fiorina's book, Rising to the Challenge, right now. That's newsmax.com/Carly. And Newsmax Prime continues right after this.